Greetings, and welcome to a podcast special that has been ripped from the headlines. With me today is my partner, Kristine Fisher. Say hi, Kristine.
Hi, Kristine.
We haven't teamed up in a while. I had a cancellation, and then the two of us went on a long road trip to Montreal and back. And then when we got back, I dislocated my rib, and we lost our internet. And then we were going to record again, and Kristine had a death in the family, so we've been pushing this back for a while. But I'm going to set the stage here as quick as I can. We're going to be talking about a very specific and relatively brief time in television film history when movies about real-world murderous women ruled the airways. So I think even the youngest listeners can understand how big of a deal made-for-TV movies were in the 70s and 80s in particular. And we actually covered some of them, Jim and I, on Genre Grinder. We did The Day After Threads and Special Bulletin, which were all made-for-TV nuclear scare movies. When cable TV became the home to non-theatrical movies, and certain stations began to differentiate themselves by specializing in certain genres and demographics. For instance, HBO made movies to compete with Hollywood. The USA Network made sort of low-budget action and adventure movies, and Cinemax basically made softcore pornography, leading to the name Skinemax. Lifetime, the so-called women's network, began specializing in these very sensationalistic and soapy crime movies that were built around female criminals and victims. Some of them were torn from the headlines, and that became like a selling point. But just before that, when Kristine and I, we're the same age, we're both 45 here, well, she's almost 45. So we were born in 1980. When we were kids, there was this sort of arms race of sensationalized made-for-TV movies about real crimes, and they tried to make them as soon as they could after it happened. And a lot of them revolved around women, because there was this sort of miasma of vague misogyny in the air in this time in the 90s. So I don't think people have lost interest in true crime, and if anything, it's even more common in the streaming era. And I don't think people have lost interest in tabloid court cases or turning accused criminals into celebrities. I think that we have more celebrity criminals recently, like the Sean Combs thing. That is not a criminal that becomes a celebrity. But then you have a lot of these documentaries on Netflix that are turning criminals and people who were probably innocent into celebrities for us, a couple months or whatever.
Yes.
But this was a sort of specific thing that happened. All that said, that things have not changed that much. There was something about this era of O.J. Simpson and Menendez Brothers trials where this true crime TV movie, and a lot of them about dangerous women, became these sort of must-see events. And the two of us are pretty young when these movies that we're going to talk about came out. But I have very distinct memories of the ads on the basic network television. And so I've never saw them because my mom was very anti-trash TV when I was growing up. So I would have been 11, 12, 13, 14 when these came out. Mm-hmm. So probably it wasn't until 14 that I was like old enough to just watch whatever I wanted. But at that point, I wasn't interested anymore. So this is sort of something that's been in the back of my mind.
I'm not aware of them being re-aired either.
A lot. I looked into it, and it doesn't like spoil anything to say that a lot of them ended up on home video, and then they were moved to stuff like the USA Network.
Gotcha.
And so they did get replayed, but it was not on regular television. If you saw it on regular television, that was it.
Network television.
Network. I should specify that.
Sure.
So Kristine and I decided to divide the labor here. She researched the real crimes, and I researched the filmmakers and casts. So we're going to do this thing where we're going to have Kristine introduce the facts of the case, and then we're going to sort of talk about the movie as a movie and kind of go into some of the things that got right. There'll be a little overlap there. And then we'll wrap up a sort of where are they now thing, where we can say where the real people are now and where the filmmakers and cast are now.
Yes.
So I'm going to start things off by introducing the person, and then Kristine's going to tell us about the case. So we're going to start...
Sounds like a plan.
...with the case of Pamela Smart, full name Pamela Wojas Smart. So tell us about Pamela Smart.
At age 23, after 2 years of marriage, New Hampshire High School Media Services Director and Drug Awareness Programmer Pamela Wojas Smart encouraged her student Billy Flynn and his two friends to kill her husband Greg in order to cash in on his life insurance policy and avoid a costly, bitter, divisive divorce. After the murder, the getaway driver accomplice reported to local police that he believed his gun was used by Flynn against the husband of Wojas Smart. A second accomplice was brought in for questioning and stated that Pam had told them her condo door was unlocked to stage the murder like a burglary, lock their dog Haley in the cellar, ransack their condo, and they were each promised $500 out of her husband's $140,000 life insurance policy. Pamela's intern Cecilia was aware of her and Billy's affair from nearly the very beginning, ever since the three were watching the movie 9.5 Weeks, and Pam and Billy stepped away to reenact a scene together in a nearby bedroom, and Cecilia walked in on them having sex. Her prior knowledge of the affair led police to ask Cecilia to wear a recording device in order to implicate Pamela to the crime with a charge of tampering with a witness. After their conversation where Pam coached Cecilia's future statements to police in the court, Pam gave Cecilia a hug and was inches away from touching the wire draped around Cecilia's waist. Wojas Smart was arrested 3 months after the murder. 3 students pled guilty for second-degree murder in order to testify against Wojas Smart. Wojas Smart received 28 years to life imprisonment for being an accomplice to first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and tampering with a witness.
So this happened in 1990.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember this particular story, and I have it confused with a lot of other stories about female teachers sleeping with...
like Laterno.
Yeah.
With her students. But she wasn't a teacher. I cannot emphasize more.
Yes. And
the news at the time was like, she's a teacher. She's not a teacher. She's a media services director.
Right. Which is... well, I'll go into that a little bit, actually. So I'm going to say, the movie we watched was The Murder in New Hampshire, the Pamela Wojas Smart story, which was released on September 24th of 1991. It's directed by Joyce Chopra, who is still working. Chopra's biggest movie is probably the 1985 movie Smooth Talk with Treat Williams and Laura Dern, which is, I think it just got a special edition Blu-ray or 4K not too long ago. It was based in part on her own documentary called Girls at 12, and Joyce Carol Oates wrote the story Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been, which also inspired Smooth Talk. So Chopra already has this sort of theme of children in inappropriate relationships. Mm-hmm. This was a big enough hit to score her more true TV movies. I picked this movie at random, and we ended up with like one of the genre titans. I didn't know this when we got in. So I'm just going to say some of the similar movies, because she made a lot. But she made 1992's The Baby Snatcher. Mm-hmm. Also 1992, The Danger of Love, the Carol Warmus story. In 1995, she directed a Deadline for Murder, from the files of Edna Buchanan. And then in 1996, she did My Very Best Friend. And she worked on a fictional miniseries. This is the one I knew. About Marilyn Monroe that was called Blonde in 2001. I remember the Blonde mini.
Was that also inspired by Joyce Carol Oates' book?
You know what? I don't know about that.
I'm about 90% sure that she wrote that book.
It would make sense. I can check that real quick here.
Sure.
Yep, based on Blonde by Joyce Carol. So her and...
they kept that bond going.
Yeah, they had a bond.
They worked together again.
Screenwriter was... That's weird. The screenwriter was Joyce Eliason. There's 3 different Joyces. That's so weird. Anyway.
Joyce number 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. Oh, strange. So, there's also one called The Disappearance of Nora, which I don't know if that one was based on a true story, but it turns out it was written by Alan Ormsby, who Jim and I just talked about a whole bunch in the Canucksploitation episode, because he made and worked on a bunch of those. So I just thought it was interesting that here we run into a filmmaker who worked with the filmmaker we were just talking about in a completely different genre and everything.
What, 2 degrees of separation?
Yeah, exactly. And then another one of her bigger movies is Gene Wilder's last film, which was also made for TV, called The Lady in Question in 1999. Oh. And then at one point she made one of the American Girl movies.
Yes, which doll?
Molly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't know the difference of the doll.
Was it the one with the where she was involved in like a variety show? And then her dad shows up?
I don't know. American Girl movie Molly. Molly's American Girl.
I wonder if it was just the intro.
Could be.
It's like meet Molly, meet Kirsten.
Because those were like more like I haven't seen any the whole way through, but from what I understand, those are closer to Hallmark movies than Lifetime movies.
They're close to other. I don't believe they were released by HBO, but HBO released a Babysitter's Club movie.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Movies, not the, like, based around a super special book, which is the larger, like, tome of, like, a Babysitter's Club. So super specials, you have the babysitters going on vacation with a family and watching after the kids and having their own fun on vacation, versus the episodic ones that were on HBO, which they did their own version of, like, Christie's Big Idea, or The Trouble with Stacy, I think it was, or The Trouble with Claudia. I want to say Trouble with Stacy, though. And then, so there would be probably like a 2 centimeter thick book translated to like a 1.5 hour film.
Okay. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that other than the people who were interested in the Pamela Smart story, the best known thing about this movie is it stars a pre-Mad About You Helen Hunt.
Yes.
And I hadn't realized she was a child actor. She was on a bunch of sitcoms as a kid, and she was in Project X with the Monkees.
Yes.
And
Matthew Broderick, or no?
Yeah. That
awesome.
One. So I'd forgotten that she was a child and teen actor. But this was, Mad About You was her signature role. That kind of pigeonholed her. Like, she won an Oscar, but she was still the Mad About You lady for basically her entire life.
Did she win for the Jack Nicholson film?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then she was in Twister, which was a huge hit, but she was still the Mad About You lady for most of her life. And this was 1 year before that. So she's going from like this sort of recognizable actress to someone who people watch every Thursday for like 10 years. William Flynn is played by Chad Allen.
Chad.
He's a recognizable child actor. I remember him because I didn't watch,
Dr. Quinn?
Dr. Quinn. I remember him from My Two Dads, where he was an on and off. I think he was either the boyfriend or like the best friend, something like that.
Oh my gosh. I don't think I can parse that from 2.5 Men. I think they're the same show for me.
No, My Two Dads was way earlier and had, oh my god, I just put this together. It was Paul Reiser.
Oh my god!
The other star of Mad About You.
Paul.
So this kid worked with the two stars of Mad About You like a year before Mad About, well, a couple years in Paul Reiser's case.
Yeah.
The two lawyers are notable. They are played by Howard Hesserman, who was a big TV star. He was on both WKRP in Cincinnati during the 70s, and then when we were kids, he was the original teacher on Head of the Class.
Yes.
He was replaced by that Scottish comedian.
Not Billy Connolly?
Billy Connolly, yeah.
Oh, right.
The defense is played by Larry Drake, who strikes me as stunt casting because he was almost exclusively at the time known for playing this mentally handicapped, this sort of offensive caricature of a mentally handicapped clerk on several seasons of LA Law. And in fact, he was still on LA Law, which was an NBC show at the time this aired. So having him as a lawyer who is not mentally handicapped, it seems like a stunt to me.
Sure.
And then he made this movie between Dr. Giggles and the villain role in Darkman. Ooh. So he's got a lot of cult stuff between that. And then he was also played a mentally handicapped man in Night of the Scarecrow, which was a made-for-TV horror movie. That's much more violent than you'd expect a 1981 made-for-TV horror movie to be.
Fond of that one.
And then I'll just say, like, quality-wise, this was more or less what I pictured in my brain when I was thinking of 90s sensationalized TV movies. I thought it was a really good place to start.
Good.
Because, like I said, I Miss You, Hugs and Kisses which inspired this episode, but it was an 80s movie, and it is structurally complete nonsense. I can't remember I don't think you watched it with me. Yeah, it's just structurally nonsense. It's crazy how out of order they tell the story, which is going to come up later, the out of order thing. But oh my god. So seeing this movie that was just, here's the things that happened in this event, and, you know, on a low-ish budget with not the best looking photography and halfway decent, it set the stage very well, I thought.
You and I both know who the bad actors were.
Yeah. we'll have you say what it got right, because
Okay.
I got a lot of notes here on some of the things I enjoyed.
Before being involved with the Winnacunnet High School media department, she really did want to be a news anchor.
Right. Which there's a short scene where she has lost, she'd had a bad interview.
Correct. And is that somewhat tied to this being the inspiration for To Die For?
Right.
Who knows?
No, the Gus Van Sant movie To Die For is 100% based on this. They changed all the names and they made it like very stylish. It's probably my favorite Gus Van Sant movie, actually, with Nicole Kidman. But in that, she is a weather woman.
Yes.
Instead of a teen helper. What was her role again?
What she did
After
at school?
school buddy.
She helped out with Project Self-Esteem to keep kids off drugs.
All right.
And was a high school media services director.
Right.
And she actually had something to say about Nicole Kidman kind of playing her in a movie. She said she portrayed me as flaky, like an airhead, ambitious to the point where she was willing to step on anybody who got in the way of her ambitions. In the movie, she came across as very narcissistic. I'm so not that way at all.
Yeah, I think in this movie, like not the Nicole Kidman one, but
right.
Yeah, in this movie, I think I didn't expect them to have sympathy for Pamela Smart, but they kind of do. Mm-hmm. They make sure to hint at her mental health issues, and it builds. It's not like she goes into the situation waiting. And it is a problem with all 4 movies we watched, is that you have 90 minutes to tell a long story.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of skipping around, and every movie does it different. This movie is really about facts. This thing happened, this thing happened, this thing happened, this thing happened. So it does build to it. And she does act like a kid. Part of me wanted it to be more sensationalized. You know, it was almost like too respectful, because I was expecting junk. It treats her grooming William Flynn really delicately. It's clear that what she's doing is wrong.
Yes.
But you can understand her attraction isn't just predatory, because she's just not emotionally mature herself. She is smart. She is good at her job, but she has this... She thinks it's not just him. She is in a sort of inappropriate relationship with the girls, too.
Yes.
They're like her friends. Like, she's treating them like peers is really what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm. She's like, you guys, we should do this.
And I didn't know that her and her husband were metalheads. I thought that was a funny...
Actually, she was more the metalhead. She actually did go to Florida State, like they said, and then she was working for a metal show called Metal Madness, and she was a promotions director, and she handed out backstage passes to hair metal band concerts. So
the movie made the husband a metalhead.
Temporary.
Right, so the idea...
He grew up.
Yeah, we're seeing more reason for her to resent him is because he stops being a metalhead.
Yeah, he fell out of it where she's still really into it.
Right. He's just fucking lame. Honestly...
And he works with his dad, for Christ's sake.
I think they're a little too respectful of Greg Smart, and I'm sure it's because he died.
Yes.
And there's a few indications of him being abusive, at least emotionally, towards her.
Yes.
And there's a pretty heavily implied thing that he might have hit her, but they don't know, and they don't want to get sued, so they don't make it, you know... within the context of the movie, his crime is that he's fucking lame. He's a yuppie.
And she doesn't want to exactly follow down his path of, like, a traditional family. He's asking her when they're going to have kids, and she's kind of, like, putting it off. Like, sometime later, we still got to...
Yeah,
you know,
she's still a kid. Is really what it comes
sure.
down to.
Oh yeah.
She's less of a pedophile predator than that she is just an immature person who does not understand what's appropriate and inappropriate. The movie makes sure that we know that their relationship is inappropriate. That every time she and the boy kiss, it's fucking gross. It's like icky. It makes you feel icky, which is something I'm going to complain about for our last movie here.
Okay.
Yeah, this movie makes it like, no, this isn't cool. I mean, and there's even some scenes where they don't really try... Maybe Helen Hunt being in it, and Helen Hunt, who's a very beautiful woman, not being sexualized was actually a plus. Because they don't turn her into, like, this sultry minx. She's just sort of someone who is inappropriate.
And the age gap between Pamela, or Pam, as she's called, and Billy is about 4 years. 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, which is kind of normal for adults.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And maybe someone interning out of school, but not like a straight up, like, person who has like a role or has a career at a school.
Yeah, I mean, and there's my favorite bit in the whole movie. You were mentioning the friend that saw them having sex.
Yes, Cecilia.
She could have avoided that whole thing if she just would have fed Cecilia. Just had some fucking snacks in the house. Because Cecilia's bored out of her mind, and just goes over and eventually is like, "Can we go home?" You know,
I'm bored.
Like they rented one video and then are like, hopefully she'll stay downstairs while we sleep together.
And you caught that I said that they watched 9.5 Weeks. They didn't watch whatever softcore porn.
Yeah, they were watching like it feels like it's like one of those Playboy
like
music
a burlesque
videos.
Sort of like striptease.
Playboy had a music video thing where they would have R-rated versions of music videos. That's what it reminded me of.
Yuck.
Yeah, that's almost one of the more inappropriate things she did, actually. And in real life, she didn't do anything that inappropriate. Yeah, so she did have someone murdered, and she did manipulate children. So she is a bad person.
Yes.
But the movie does a decent job sort of making sure we understand the complications, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So where are they now?
Can we do what might have been dramatized?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You said you had some things you thought were... Yeah.
I don't recall hearing anything about her driving a Thunderbird with a Halen vanity plate. And the dog's name, it was Halen, Haylen, not Haley. Even though that might have been like a nickname for the dog, but this was a real dog. She really loved it a lot.
Yeah.
The actors playing Billy's friends, though they acted very badly, they're the bad actors in this film, by the way. All the guys that played Billy's friends.
Yeah.
They weren't cast against type. The citizens of Seabrook, New Hampshire served as the inspiration for the Appalachian Hillbillies and Al Cap's comic strip Little Abner. So they were kind of like, duh.
Yeah.
A little bit.
There's actually the best acting in the movie from them is the scene where they're acting badly on purpose. To like, oh no, I don't know what happened, you know.
Like on the stand or like with their interrogations?
Their interrogations and stuff, yeah.
The Smart Murder Trial was the first in U.S. history to be broadcast on television gavel to gavel on court TV in 1991. I think they said that the courtroom was full of cameras, but obviously they probably couldn't say it was court TV cameras. Yeah,
they didn't want to pay court TV, or court TV was owned by one of the other studios.
Speaking of people wanting to be portrayed a certain way on television or on film, the judge in the court case really wanted to be played by Clint Eastwood if it ever were to become a movie. Pamela's mom was really involved in her daughter's case. I don't know if there was really mention of her mom outside of when she was younger. She lived with her mom and she had like this heavy metal bedroom and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's one scene of her when at the very beginning when he gets the new job.
Greg gets a new job.
Greg gets a new job, and she's just listening to music and sitting around in her underwear, which is the only sort of TNA moment in the whole thing.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. But yeah, Pamela's mom, in real life, she had a lot more involvement after she went to prison and wrote petitions or had people sign petitions to be lighter sentencing and for her to be released early.
So where are they now? I only got one for this.
What?
Yeah. Most of these people, I already said what the director and Helen Hunt
the
did.
Actors.
Yeah.
Pamela Wojas Smart is still serving a life sentence. First in a New Hampshire prison, now in a prison in Bedford Hills, New York, where her nickname is Tinkerbell, and has obtained a master's degrees in English Lit and Science of Law, is working on a doctorate in ministry, and is involved in her prison's church leadership. In 1996, she was beaten so severely by inmates that her eye socket was fractured and had to have a plate implanted on the side of her face. In 2003, she claimed that a prison guard sexually assaulted her and forced her to pose for photos in the same poses she made in court, although the guard has since died. She holds anger against the accomplices being given parole and against Billy for getting married. On June 2024, Wojas Smart admitted on a recorded statement that she accepted all personal responsibility for her husband's murder. She is also an advocate for the elder parole bill, where those who are 60 plus years old who would have served 18 years or more in prison for first-degree murder are eligible for parole. Flynn was released on parole in June 2015, lives in Maine with his wife Kelly, who met him through writing him letters in prison starting in 2005, so they had a 10-year relationship before they got married.
Okay.
In prison, by the way.
Okay.
Haley the dog died in 1998,
Oh.
having gone to Pamela's mom's care after Greg's death, and Pam went to prison. Cecilia, the intern, is now an RN involved with animal rescues and still lives in New Hampshire.
Cool. The only thing, other note I have is that Chad Allen, who played Billy, not long after this film, he was forcibly outed by a tabloid as gay, and sort of changed his career and became a sort of important advocate for same-sex marriage, and he is now a clinical psychologist.
Yes! Way to go, Chad!
Next, then, Kristine, could you tell us about Betty Broderick?
On November 5th, 1989, Elizabeth, or Betty Broderick, the first wife of lawyer Dan Broderick, was accused of killing him and his second wife, Linda. Both were shot in bed in the early morning hours after Betty entered the house unannounced with a stolen key and fired at them a total of 5 times. Betty and Dan had been married for 16 years until Dan filed for custody of their 4 children in 1985, ownership of their house, and the ability to seal the court orders. Betty and Dan's divorce would not be finalized until 1986, though Dan claimed, quote, "It's not going to end until one of us is gone." And he had every reason to believe so. Betty was accused of stealing Linda's property, driving her car into their house's front door and living room window. She had stolen the guest list for Linda and Dan's wedding in 1989, to which Linda asked Dan to wear a bulletproof vest. Betty violated protective orders, left scathing messages on their answering machine, fought for a $16,000 per month in alimony, and burned Dan's clothes in the backyard when she wasn't included in his 39th birthday celebrations. His second wife, Linda, was once Dan's receptionist before being promoted to his personal assistant in 1983. Betty claims to have attempted suicide by slitting her wrist when she heard that Dan was having an affair with Linda, and on the November night that she entered their bedroom, she had planned to shoot herself in front of the couple, but then shot them when Linda yelled for the police and Dan reached for the phone. Not long after, she turned herself in to police custody, and the first trial began.
The movie we watched was A Woman Scorned, the Betty Broderick story from 1992. It's directed by Dick Lowry. Lowry worked almost exclusively in TV movies. He made the Kenny Rogers Gambler movies.
Fun!
Which was based on the hit song The Gambler. And we know about this because we have a wonderful friend who is obsessed with Bruce Boxleitner, who is also in those movies. So I've actually seen a couple of them because of her.
Died in your sleep.
Yeah, die in your sleep. Yeah, exactly. He also made a bizarre, several years post-cancellation feature-length movie for feature-length series-ending Project Alf.
Oh, no.
Which, again, several years after Alf hadn't been on the air, they made this weird wrap-up movie that apparently is really dark and everybody hates it. It basically ends with Alf getting kidnapped by the government and it implied that he's going to be dissected, and that's the end.
Isn't that what happens to Stitch?
No, Stitch is invincible.
He can't be killed by the
Yeah, I've actually
government.
seen one of the Stitch sequels, and he's yeah.
Okay.
And then he made 9 movies in NBC's true crime TV movie franchise In the Line of Duty, which is not to be confused with the cool Hong Kong action Girls with Guns
Totally
movies.
different.
And then his last film was an entry in Tom Selleck's Jesse Stone series, which I don't know what network those aired on. They were a cable thing. I'm guessing it was something like USA or TNT.
Okay.
I remember, not this event, but I remember the promos on CBS for this.
With Meredith Baxter.
With Meredith Baxter. I remember seeing them, and we actually probably should have, I didn't think of that. I should have looked on YouTube to see if they still had the promos, because I bet I would have remembered the words they were having in them.
Or what scenes were featured to promote it.
So Broderick was played by Meredith Baxter, who herself was hot off 7 seasons of Family Ties, which was, if you are unaware, one of the biggest sitcoms of the 80s, and the movie that made Michael J. Fox a star.
The series that made Michael J. Fox.
The series that made Michael J. Fox a star before Back to the Future.
Yes.
And yeah, it was a very big. It was like, I believe, Wednesday night television. She had previously played the shiksa wife of an older Jewish man on a less successful sitcom called Bridget Loves Bernie. This
No
was
idea.
1 year, 1974.
Huh.
But then she was the lead in an ABC drama series called Family, that ran from 76 to 80, which was produced by Mike Nichols of The Graduate and Aaron Spelling, before Aaron Spelling became
90210.
90210 name brand man.
Yes.
And it was employed writer-director Edward Zwick, who a lot of people listening to this podcast will know as the guy who directed Glory and The Last Samurai. A lot of movies where it's about one culture and it's all told from a white dude's point of view. He made a lot of those. They're very well-made movies that I'm not particularly fond of. But he himself produced 30-something and My So-Called Life, which were sort of seen as semi-spin-offs of Family. And the funny thing about Family is it starred James Broderick, no relation, and takes place in Pasadena,
Okay.
near the events of this story.
In La Jolla?
Yeah. Pasadena, La Jolla, they're pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
And Baxter's character, Nancy, also begins the series catching her husband in bed with another woman. That's how Family begins.
Huh.
So there was this connection to this 10-year-old, no, more than 10-year-old, almost 20-year-old show.
Okay.
The showrunners were former writers on The Waltons, so they had been around the block. The actress who plays Pamela Spart's mother-in-law, Michael Leonard.
Person? Betty Broderick's mom?
No. This is the right person. The person who starred as Pamela Smart's mother-in-law in the other movie,
Oh, what?
Michael Leonard, she was one of the leads on The Waltons.
Yes.
And so I kept on running into these weird connections that don't really mean anything, but reveal how tight-knit the TV industry was at the time in particular, while cable is still really growing. It seems like it was part of a concerted effort to de-mummify and roughen the edges of her reputation. Like, she had played so many moms.
Oh, true, yeah.
And she was just sort of seen as the mom. And so she was going out of her way to sort of roughen her career up. And she was actually nominated for a Primetime Emmy for her performance in there.
Mm-hmm.
She lost to Jean Rollins for Faces of a Stranger, which I don't remember, but I know who Jean Rollins is.
Oh, yeah.
Gina Rollins, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And then, speaking of child molesters, Dan Broderick is played by the now disgraced Stephen Collins, who found greater fame with Seventh Heaven before he was outed as a pedophile. And Linda is played by Michelle Johnson, who I personally know from Waxworks and Dr. Giggles with Larry Drake.
Again with the Dr. Giggles.
And then she was also in the Menendez Killing in Beverly Hills made-for-TV movie a couple years later.
Okay.
And then another recognizable... These movies all have very recognizable faces. The Office Space stapler guy, Stephen Root, who's in Coen Brothers movies.
I know him from True Blood.
True Blood. He was, he's a
vampire.
voice actor on King of the Hill.
Mm-hmm.
He was also a regular on LA Law at the time. And he was in another Killer Woman true crime story the next year, the Black Widow Murders, the Blanche Taylor Moore story. He was also on News Radio at the time. So he was on 2 successful TV shows and 2 true crime Crazy Lady movies. And then a very small role, Joanne Rupp from That 70s Show.
Oh, yeah.
She actually has a really nice scene that sort of establishes the husband as a prick. Mm-hmm. Like, we get to see that he's a prick from a different point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a short scene, but it's a good scene.
Like, she knows that she should be a younger, receptionist person, and she's not his type, so she's just going to find her own way out.
Right. She's saying, we all recognize that you're giving this girl extra. She is not earning her keep, and she's getting extra stuff.
Right.
And then there's a Canadian actress named Laurie Haller, who I know from My Bloody Valentine, when she was much younger. But her appearance brings up an interesting point that her, Stephen Collins, Stephen Root, Christy Jensen, Tricia O'Neill, Clayton Landley, Jenny Swadsden, Shazana Thompson, and Eric Weiss, 9 out of the 18 names on the lead cast IMDb were on some form of Star Trek.
Oh, yeah, you did say that.
And so I think this is a CBS thing. I think this was the best overall movie that we watched. It was it has Mark Snow does the music. It's has a little bit of that special episode of a sitcom, but it has more cinematic moments.
Yes.
One weird note I had is that you actually can't watch this in its original TV aspect ratio. At some point, CBS did a DVD transfer, so everything I found it on was 16:9, and you can kind of tell it's been cropped. But it does look nicer than any of the other movies we watched, which have not been redone for even the DVD era, let alone the Blu-ray era. The script was based on an article by Amy Wallace entitled Till Murder Do Us Part, so she gets a story credit.
Okay.
Whereas Joe Garcia's credited with the script, and his script is probably the best structured out of all the scripts, but that is in part because it ends with the murder, and the entire case after that was a different movie.
Yes.
Yeah, let's see what you think it got right and wrong, because I have some guesses.
Mr. and Mrs. Broderick were heavily defined by their successes in their social lives, sudden, extravagant decisions, and Betty was quick to jealousy and oversensitive to small slights, as evidenced by that scene where they're skiing in a ski lodge, and she's quickly rifled by some sort of thing that she thought was handled.
Yeah.
The Broderick family minivan, though it was portrayed as a Suburban in the movie, did have load-em-up vanity plates. This is a second appearance of vanity plates in one of these movies. And I think it's the final of two. I don't think there were any other custom ones. Betty did support Dan through his degrees at Cornell Medical School and Harvard Law in order to specialize in medical malpractice. Let's see. She did indeed want a divorce ever since their honeymoon in the Caribbean. Betty did date a man named Bradley Wright, Jerry, in the TV movie, who she met prior to the murders. He would write her letters in prison and gave money to both her and one of her daughters until their breakup in 2006. Both Linda and Betty were at her daughter's graduation ceremony. Betty committed vandalism a la Boston cream pie and graffiti. Betty's defense for very crude answering machine messages were that she became angry at the sound of Linda's voice in the recording when she tried to call her kids. Before turning herself in, she called her daughter Lee, saying, "The bitch is dead." And at the end, they say Betty is being considered parole in 2010, but was denied it both then and in 2017, but is next up for it in 2032.
Yeah, this movie is not, it doesn't like either Betty or her husband.
No,
and so
really.
That was a little bit refreshing.
It seemed to be like from a working, like middle class person standpoint of these people are rich and they have rich people problems.
And they have rich people problems, and it's all they think about.
Mm-hmm. And who's getting the house and who gets to take care of the kids, and and how dare she take this life away from me. She really is a younger model of me when I was first had met Dan.
And, you know, you can tell a version of this story where Dan is just the cheating yuppie shit who wants the young model and wants to make money and doesn't care about anything else. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, she is a singularly irrational borderline personality.
Absolutely.
Like, anytime someone starts to bring up, maybe you should let this go, she's like, who got to you? Why have you betrayed me? Mm-hmm. So it is very a part of the role is that she is this irrational person. And
she places a lot of blame towards Dan on the fact that he has such an expert practice of the law, and he can turn even the law against her.
And that's one of the things that I could see a very misogynistic reading of this movie, mm-hmm. because she knows that, and she brings up, I have no power in this situation, mm-hmm. because Dan's a famous lawyer and a white man. Yes. And that's true. But what's also true is that she's kind of a maniac.
She doesn't have to take it that far.
And she's delusional.
Mm-hmm.
But she's just smart enough to know, what legal things, like how it makes her look better. And that's actually something that comes up. We ended up watching the sequel. Originally, we weren't going to. Mm-hmm. It's called Her Final Theory, Betty Broderick, The Last Chapter.
Yes.
I was not clear. This is also written and directed by Lowry. I didn't take as many notes here, but I tried really hard to see if they had already planned on doing this originally, mm-hmm. and I couldn't find any verification. The closest I got is that in her memoir, Baxter said that she regretted playing the character.
Altogether? Or just the second time?
All together.
Oh.
But it was during the first time. She said that she based her performance on what publicists had been made public record, or what Betty's performances had made public record. Mm-hmm. So she wanted to give her more sympathy, which is really funny because she's super unsympathetic in the movie. But she was playing her sympathetically, quote unquote. And so she actually claims that the sequel helped her correct the misconception by playing her as this sort of manipulative creep.
Sure.
Because she spends the entirety of the second movie from prison being this manipulative creep. Mm-hmm. And being a sociopath, basically.
Yes.
And so nothing... So that makes me think that maybe there wasn't originally a plan, or that there was a big break between the two filming. But they were both released the same year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I couldn't really find much more on that. Based on part of what Baxter said about trying to change how she was portraying her. Mm-hmm. Another thing that happens in the sequel is that we learn Betty was actually being supported by women's groups.
Yes.
And she was taking advantage of that. So violence against women is that she was making all these claims that probably weren't true. We do know that he attacked her when she drove a car into his house, but it was mostly to restrain her. He was abusive in plenty of ways. He wasn't necessarily physically abusive. We don't know. But they sort of tried to mitigate the backlash by making the female prosecutor the major character in the sequel. Mm-hmm. And so we get to deal with the is this good or bad for feminism thing through her. So it's not as... She's played by Judith Ivey is her name. It's not as good. It's not as layered. It's not as interesting of a movie. The first movie ends... The murder scene... Mike Snow's score for the murder scene is actually really good.
Yeah.
Though it did remind us a little of Plants vs. Zombies.
That's true.
Yeah. But they, I think the first movie ends good and open-ended, and so you don't really need the sequel. They also change some of how the story is being told.
Yes.
Instead, like, it seems like she's in a completely different prison the way they end the first movie. And,
yes. When she's really just being held there, that's not where she's permanently staying at all.
Right. So, it's not necessary, but it kind of, part of me feels like it is necessary to watch both of them just to get the whole vibe.
Some closure, yeah.
Yeah. There's also something very weird that happens in that Patricia Tallman, who is the lead in Tom Savini's Night of the Living Dead remake, she has an uncredited Blink and You'll Miss It scene as a jail guard. She has the exact same haircut she had in Night of the Living Dead. Uh-huh. And my guess there is she's not credited anywhere. It's definitely her. It's unmistakably her, but she was also a stunt woman. Mm. So I'm thinking she just was in that scene because it's a scene where the police are literally having to drag Betty from one place to another because she's protesting.
Yes.
And so I think they wanted stunt people in that scene in case Baxter was kicking. And so I think she was. Yeah, and so she just didn't get a credit because she was only a stunt person in that scene. Mm-hmm. But she's another connection to Star Trek.
Funny how that works.
So tell us what happened later. How did this end? Where are they now?
What might have been dramatized, what I might not have read about, and what the movie missed out on, Gabe.
Right, sorry.
It's not done yet. After the murders, her two daughters were adults, but her two sons were raised by Dan's brother's ex-wife. The scene where she says, "I'm not going to be ignored" on the answering machine probably didn't really happen.
Yeah, they wanted which movie is that from?
Fatal Attraction.
Yeah. They wanted the Fatal Attraction thing.
The golf scenes where Dan and Betty were at a country club. The real Betty and Dan Broderick had memberships at the Fairbanks Ranch Country Club, and I doubt the scenes where they're at the golf course are filmed there at the Fairbanks Ranch. I don't think Betty was present when Dan first saw Linda. It was weird how both Dan and Linda and Betty and her two sons were all watching It's Wonderful Life all at the same time. I didn't know that Betty was withheld alimony while the guest list was missing, or that Linda went to Betty's house to look for it and found the draft of her autobiography.
Yeah, those are both things that make Dan and Linda look bad.
Yes.
Linda should not have gone. So I don't know if those really happened.
Yeah. And I doubt that Betty called every person on the list that she saw.
No, she probably found a couple names because she's all about loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
But I would believe that she would call some people. And I'm sure those people said something about it in court, too.
Mm-hmm. There seemed to be a big emphasis on Dan being Irish and Linda being Dutch. I had no idea that was a big deal. Even going into their wedding, that's kind of something that they emphasize. With the second movie, do you want me to talk about that part?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that Lee finds her keys among Betty's stuff that she had brought.
Right, that's an important part of the case, is that she steals her daughter's keys.
Her daughter's keys to their house, and they're supposed to protect her with their life, and they should never leave her side because someone could get hurt as a result of someone having someone else's keys. I didn't know that Betty had her own PR person. I didn't know there was so much paperwork in the courtroom scenes. It was filled with boxes and files and just it was a mess. I didn't know that Linda's sister made an impact statement in court on behalf of her sister. And I didn't know that Larry, Dan's brother, really did indeed have some ties to all this and was closely connected to the defense of the case.
Yeah, he sort of just becomes a character in the second one, whereas he's just there in the couple scenes in the first one.
And you're even asking, like, does he get the custody?
Yeah.
No, it's his ex-wife that gets custody of the boys.
I think the best thing about the sequel is the first 10 minutes or so.
Even though it's a rehash of the stuff that
right,
happened
as
before.
soon as we see the murder happen, but then there's all these scenes that are actually kind of interesting to me, that like the process of when someone's murdered, how do you inform the families?
Yeah.
All that stuff I thought was really interesting. And I liked that they shifted some of the point of view away from her.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Everyone has their own experience, not just the murderer.
I really do like Baxter's performance.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw she won an award, I was a little scared that it would be too serious, but she knows when to kind of go campy.
Oh, yeah.
And because this is kind of a campy, over-the-top character just because she's so dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that that's the way she was in real life, too.
Right.
And then I think when I made notes that the only, like, looking at this as a movie and not part of this podcast, the one thing I think they made a mistake in the first movie is having that narration. I think it really...
Yeah.
I think Baxter's eyes tell us everything we need to know, and it creates this weird thing where those only narration during a couple moments, and my guess is that they didn't want to have to reshoot any scenes.
Yes.
So they're like, we need a narration to make this more clear.
And there was so much truth to the story said during her pieces where she was doing narration.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, I did hear about that. Oh yeah, that really did happen.
Yeah. So where are they now?
Throughout each trial, of which there were 2, with Betty suddenly declaring herself innocent and the first ending in a deadlock mistrial, beyond the obvious decision of guilty or not guilty, Betty was faced with the prospect of being charged with murder or manslaughter, being viewed as a vengeful ex-wife or a mother emotionally abused by her husband, who has full knowledge of the law and uses it to his advantage, or even a woman determined to kill her husband and his new younger wife versus a woman who holds a grudge against each member of her family, including her children, who she would alternatingly adore, lash out against as being traitors to her for siding with their new mom, and uphold the ones who would later petition for her release, then ignore the ones who would refuse to write her letters of support. However, in 1991, the jury of the second trial decided unanimously that Betty would be charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder, second degree due to not planning out the murders in advance,
Right.
and would serve 32 years to life in prison in the California Institute for Women, where she, at first she was working as a janitor, but then she started to work as a scheduling assistant for women who are in the mental health unit, and she helps women who want to earn a GED.
Maybe I should have said this sooner. Baxter, around this time, like we were saying, she was trying to be less mommy. In 1990, just before she had produced and starred in a TV movie called The Kissing Place, where she plays a woman who kidnaps a young boy. This is not based on a true story, but she kidnaps a young boy to raise as her own.
Sure.
And then in 1991, she was in a different movie about a child molester / kidnapper called Bump in the Night. And in this case, she was not the kidnapper, but it was a very adult film. for what it was, what she had been known for.
Okay.
But she later became kind of more known for her personal life.
Yes.
And this included she had been abused by her ex-husband, which, makes some interesting connections to Betty.
Yes.
And she survived breast cancer, and she came out as lesbian. And she has never really disappeared from TV. She just does guest roles these days.
Yes.
But she pops up all the time. And, then the Broderick story was also covered. This is a pretty well-known thing. It was also covered on an episode of Investigation Discovery. There's a series called Deadly Women. It was the subject of a Law and Order episode in 1991 before this, which garnered that guest star, Shirley Knight, her own Primetime Emmy nomination. And then there was an episode of Murder Made Me Famous entitled Angry Betty Broderick, in which Holly Day played Broderick, but apparently did not get an Oscar or an Emmy nomination. There was an Oxygen Network, which was related to Lifetime. I can't remember. Are they both women's networks?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
There was a 2020 episode of Snapped. And then most recently, there was a Netflix anthology series called Dirty John.
Dirty John season 2.
Yeah, which
I
didn't.
An episode or two of that.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was an anthology show. Amanda Peet plays her in that one, and also was not nominated.
And Christian Slater plays Dan Broderick.
Yeah, and that one actually, the part I watched with you was her crashing the car into the house, and it was played entirely different at a different time of day.
Exactly. I was like, was it day? Was it night?
Yeah, interesting. Okay. So then we're going to cover 2 more movies here, but it's all based on one story. So, and this is probably the most famous story, I think, even to this day, the one most people know. But Kristine, could you tell us about the Amy Fisher story?
At age 16, Amy Fisher met Joey Buttafuoco when she and her family began bringing their cars to his shop for repairs. Not long after that, in 1991, their alleged affair began and lasted for about a year before Amy decides she should confront his wife, Mary Jo, at their Massapequa home in May of 1992. Then again, she would adapt the story to be about her younger sister, who didn't exist, who was having an affair with Joey, offered an auto body shop t-shirt to Mary Jo as proof of this affair, and gave herself a fake name. This didn't ring true to Mary Jo, who turned away to shut the door on Anne Marie. This is when Amy made her move to hit Mary Jo in the head with the gun, then shoot her in the jaw. Despite this, Mary Jo was able to give the police an accurate description of Amy, and Joey identified the t-shirt as being a gift to Amy's father. So it was all too apparent to him that Amy had hit and shot his wife. After this, and going into the first trial in September of 1992, it's a matter of he said, she said. Joey claimed nothing was going on and swore on their children's lives that he and Amy never had sex, while Amy asserted they were sleeping together and Joey wanted her to shoot Mary Jo. For now, Amy would be declared guilty and sentenced to 15 years in prison. Then the following year, when confronted with motel receipts of meetups between he and Amy, Joey confessed they did indeed have an affair with a 16-year-old who was younger than the age of consent in New York State. It was charged with statutory rape, but only served 4 months in jail.
So there's this phenomenon where 2 movie studios will be working on competing projects with the same basic premise. And it was an especially big thing towards the end of the 90s. Don't know why. But we had 2 volcano movies, we had 2 Mars movies, we had 2 asteroid movies, we had 2 cartoon movies about bugs. At the same time, this sensationalized true crime stuff is one of those you need to strike when the iron's hot, while people are still paying attention to the story if you want eyes on your movie. These days, I think most true crime docs like to look back on something that wasn't solved, or something that was solved that maybe the general public doesn't remember, or they're too young to remember, which is much more interesting to me than something that is still ongoing. In fact, I'm often pissed off if I watch a true crime thing and it's like, and now it went to trial and we don't know what's going to happen. It's like, well, then fucking don't finish the movie then.
Yeah, it's just, we're going to look for the killer or what the purpose of this was, and we don't know.
Yeah.
We just don't know.
There are cases where it works, but there are a lot that it doesn't.
Absolutely.
So there was a lot of competition in the 90s. And the Amy Fisher story was the tabloid story in 1992 into 1993. What year was... O.J. was the next year, 94?
Ooh, I don't know about that.
Let me double check that. 94, yes.
Aha.
So we were on the verge of O.J., which was the biggest, like, even my snotty parents couldn't avoid it situation. And the Menendez Brothers had just happened too.
Yes.
So that was like the peak, 93, 94. So we're at the edge of the peak with Amy Fisher and Joey Buttafuoco. And so I have these memories, these very strong memories of there being two Amy Fisher movies. The Amy Fisher Story and Casualties of Love, The Long Island Lolita. And they were released in my brain around the same time, each with a former child star playing Fisher. My memory was wrong. There were 3 of these. There was also NBC, so that was CBS and ABC. NBC also had, which hit out first,
yes.
Lethal Lolita, Amy Fisher, My Story. That's Lethal Lolita - Amy Fisher : My Story.
Gosh, that's too much.
This was on December 28th, 1992. It just barely beat the other 2 of the year. I found a Medium article written by contributor Mary Lodi. I couldn't find much more backstory. IMDb and Wikipedia weren't a lot of help. I even downloaded 2 books about TV movies, and I should have checked first because neither one of them covered any of these. But the important part here is that the NBC version was made to show Fisher's perspective. NBC paid Fisher. This is covered in the other movie that they actually paid her bail.
Yes.
By buying her story.
Mm-hmm.
And then that actually complicated her case because she wasn't allowed to say certain things because her story was now copyrighted.
Yes.
And so we didn't watch that movie. I decided I didn't need to watch a third Amy Fisher movie. But the important thing is that it was made to show her perspective, and it aired about 2 weeks before the other ones. The other ones were aired not close to each other, but literally at the same time, the same night, January 3rd, 1993. I don't remember that detail either. They were up against each other, and both were rating successes. Mm-hmm. Even though you had to pick one or the other, almost 50-50% of the human beings watching television in America picked one or the other. Like the other programming on NBC, nobody watched it, or Fox, nobody watched it.
Right.
Everybody watched one of these 2 movies. I wanted to talk about. I don't know why it chose this order. I had a reason earlier, but the CBS version, The Casualty of Love, yes. Which I'm gonna just probably call the Long Island Lolita story. Mm-hmm. This was made by former sitcom. This one features. I don't know why I said made by former sitcom child star Alyssa Milano as Fisher, mm-hmm. and is directed by John Herzfeld. Milano's casting was, as will be for the next one, a major draw. As listeners of a certain age already know, she was like a big-time sitcom child star for like 8 years, I think. It was 8 or 9 years on Who's the Boss. But then she was also in the Arnold Schwarzenegger film Commando. But yeah, so her casting was like the news. Mm-hmm. And like a lot of child stars, she was at the time going out of her way to adult up her career.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And in 1992, just before this, she had played a prostitute in Mark Rocco's Where the Day Takes You, alongside other former child and teen stars, including Sean Astin, Laura Flynn Boyle, Balthazar Getty, and Will Smith, and Ricky Lake.
Wow.
They all played teenage runaways. I had never heard of this movie.
Never.
I don't think it did very well.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So that was her first thing. And I won't go into... We'll do Where Are They Now for the rest of it.
Right.
The thing that makes this movie kind of despicable is that it was made with... So the first movie was Amy Fisher's bought story. This one was the Buttafuoco family version.
Yes.
So this is told... Joey Buttafuoco is the victim here. Milano has since said that she regrets it because now we know what we know about Joey Buttafuoco.
Yes, we do.
But this wasn't even retroactive. I don't know what she's talking about because I was only 12 at the time, and I remember the general consensus being that he was a scumbag, mm-hmm. and that like his name became a joke.
Yes.
Nobody liked him. Like Amy Fisher's story, we've softened on her over the years mm-hmm. because she was a kid, but nobody ever liked Joey Buttafuoco. And so understanding that this is a morally reprehensible film, this is exactly the kind of trash. This is the trashiest of the movies we watched, and it's kind of what I thought they were all going to be like.
No, absolutely not.
And so it does stuff like it lets Joey off the hook by making him a barely functional loser who's just too stupid and too in love with his wife to be a bad person.
Correct.
And we're meant to like him because he turns his life around at the beginning of the movie. He's
Yes.
like a coke addict, and he's turned his life around in rehab.
Mm-hmm.
But I have no interest in sympathizing with Joey Buttafuoco.
No, no way.
Who later, I'm sure Kristine will tell us what he did later in life. And
Yes,
we know he was a piece of shit. But this movie, cinematically, is just... It's like somewhere between a serious crime genre, a sitcom, and one of those straight-to-video horror movies that Patrick and I watched. Like there's this do-it-yourselfness to it. It just seems like nobody was really behind the wheel. And it has this Cinemax softcore sleaziness minus the sex scenes. So it will be all the lead-up. Will be like just really inappropriate interactions between Milano and Jack Scalia, who have zero chemistry. It's just maybe the saving grace of the movie is that they have so little chemistry that it doesn't feel as exploitative as it could be.
I would say the saving grace of the film is Lawrence, who plays his dad.
Oh, Lawrence Tierney.
Lawrence Tierney being the dad and being kind of like, what's going on with it all? And the paranoid brother who believes in conspiracy theories.
Yeah, because...
No, that's one of my what might have been dramatized, because there was nothing about this brother who was like, oh...
Yeah, Lawrence Tierney is kind of funny because other than Milano, he's the biggest star in the thing, and
yes.
he's all but one of his scenes are in the same
in the
room.
auto body shop.
And so I think they had him for 2 days, and they just
brought him over to the Buttafuoco home
yeah,
for like
and that
his
was
last
it.
day.
Oh, I can hear we're picking up people outside. I apologize about the traffic sound. They've closed the highway, so our street is being...
And there's a soccer game tonight.
Yeah, and there's a soccer game tonight. We're near the stadium. So John Herzfeld is a sort of interesting director. He began his career making ABC after-school specials, so it was like he was being trained for this shit right off the bat. He made a Danny Aiello movie just before this, The Preppy Murder, which I believe is then referenced in the other Amy Fisher movie.
Really?
The Preppy Murder was the murder that they keep bringing up, that like, how did Amy Fisher get the highest bail in history when this preppy kid who had killed people...
Oh, from the perspective of the person who worked for a current affair?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So he had made that movie. And then, that has Danny Aiello, Billy Baldwin, and Laura Flynn Boyle. Mm-hmm. He had made a non-crime TV biopic, the Ryan White story about a child with HIV.
Oh, yeah.
And then he made, which actually won a bunch of awards, the HBO movie Don King, Only in America from 1997,
yes.
which had Ving Rhames in it, which is generally liked.
Mm-hmm.
But between that, he made one of the more blatant Pulp Fiction cash-ins, because there was this whole thing in the 90s where Pulp Fiction's like, oh, we can make these neo-noir crime movies with like an ironic sense of humor. So he made one called 2 Days in a Valley.
Oh,
which
yeah.
I remember seeing but can't tell you what happened in it.
Absolutely not.
And then he wrote and directed a Robert De Niro movie called 15 Minutes, which is remembered as a horrible flop, and a not good movie. But there's an interesting meta subtext, because that whole film is about how sensationalizing crime in media can lead to criminals craving that. And so it's about a killer who is filming his crimes, basically.
Okay.
So he was aware. And more recently, he did something called The Death and Life of Bobby Z, which is based on a Don Winslow book. And he did the third movie in Sylvester Stallone's Escape Plan. That should have been told Where Are They Now, but whatever. I already did it.
Too late.
And so, yeah, like I said, Jack Scalia plays Buttafuoco. He was regular on Dallas.
Oh, really?
I know him from Juan Piquer Simon's The Rift, which is the cheapest of this half-dozen undersea sci-fi horror movies that all came out in 1999 to compete with The Abyss. They knew that The Abyss was coming out, and they made it. Patrick and I might cover this someday. I quite like The Rift. It's awful, but it's the most fun of the bad ones, I think. And he had been in USA TV movies, which were sort of competing. It was called Deadly Desire, and it was sort of like the safe, erotic TV thriller version of Body Heat.
Oh, I see.
And I think that they are trying to pull off some of that neo-noir like look in this movie and just not pulling it off.
Right.
There's a bunch of recognizable character actors. Michael Bowen, who most people remember from Tarantino movies like Kill Bill, where he plays Buck and he's here to fuck. He plays, what was his name? Paul, the second boyfriend that was the bodybuilder. What was that guy's name? I think it was Paul. It doesn't. Yeah, he is another scumbag who was in Amy's life. And then J.E. Freeman, who was the corporate scientist in Alien Resurrection. He plays a really prick of a detective who's just mean to everybody for no reason.
Correct.
And Eric Avari, who is the sort of priest in the original Stargate. Very recognizable face.
Yeah, that's right.
He's a surgeon in just one scene.
I'm like, he can speak English just fine.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
He plays it with like a Pakistani or Indian accent.
Definitely an accent, yes.
Which he doesn't have in real life, but it's just interesting they got someone of his caliber to play a surgeon and have only one scene. And I counted, and only 3 actors were on Star Trek this time, but almost all of them are on some form of Law and Order over the years. And I think another thing I liked about this movie, in the it's so bad it's good category, is that everybody's doing Saturday Night Live level impressions of these characters.
Oh my gosh.
I think there are parts that are supposed to be lighthearted, but I don't think it's meant to be as funny as it is. Because there's all these, they're all from Long Island, so they all do with a strong dog kind of Long Island accents.
Yes.
And then greaseball Italian stereotypes. So everybody's like, oh, hey, whoa. It's just like they're not even human beings.
That was immediately apparent from the first part when Joey is leaving rehab, and these guys are shouting down to him about this is Mary Jo that I keep on hearing about. Oh, isn't she great? I've been talking about you the whole time. I'm like, this is going to de-evolve into like a Broadway TV movie where he loves his wife.
It's so
ideal life.
And in retrospect, that scene is such horrible propaganda.
Ugh.
That is trying, because this movie will not tell us if they slept together. No. It just skips over it.
It does.
Which we know happened.
Yes.
But because the Buttafuoco's were involved, they're like, no, let's just say that they never slept together.
Right.
And none of it is his fault. And so and then he just keeps talking about how much he loves his wife. And it's
all the time.
Really embarrassing. I think Milano has really good accidental comic timing with some of her scenes.
Sometimes, yeah.
I don't think she's bad in it, but
no.
I think that she's given bad direction. There's this huge laugh where Amy first confronts Mary Jo, and we don't see the build-up. We just see that from another camera angle that there's this random boy we've never met hiding in the bush with a shotgun.
Yep.
In the other version, they explain what happened there.
It's a little bit more talked about.
But everything that Milano's character does is it's like Scooby-Doo level trying to kill. Like she wears like disguises and stuff. It's really embarrassing.
Very sad.
And the other big laugh I got is that Joey's brother Bobby is shouting, "Why were you happy on TV?" Because they're saying he was too happy on TV, so now people think that he doesn't care about his wife.
Correct.
And just screaming, "Why were you happy on TV?" was very funny to me.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about what this movie got right, or do you want to talk about the next movie first?
Movie got right, please.
Okay, go for it.
And dramatized. And
yeah.
Joey narrowed down who might have instigated attack by who has an out-of-body shop t-shirt. Sort of what happened, but really, actually, it was a gift to Amy's dad. That's how Amy came upon the shirt. So he's just like doing his own detective work in the movie, like, who has a shirt? Who would do this to my wife? And who also has a shirt? Amy does, so she did it.
That actually something in the other movie. It's brought up, and it's just not a big deal.
Correct.
She's just handed a shirt. She asked for one and is handed one, and Mary Jo says, "Everybody has those shirts. It doesn't prove anything." Yeah.
The shirt is a bigger deal in this one.
I thought that was weird. So yeah, go on. Sorry.
Joey is more recently than when he was presented with a court case. Was accused of statutory rape. Though the interviewing detective, the guy from Alien Resurrection, lied about the age of consent in the state of New York. He kind of let him into the idea of statutory rape at that time, but it didn't come into play later after Amy's trial that it came back to haunt him. And what might have been dramatized, what I might not have read about, and what the movie missed out on, Amy was definitely depicted as shooting Mary Jo, not pistol whipping her beforehand.
Yeah, there's none of that. No. And I don't even mention it in this version, I don't think.
No. She is definitely hit with the gun. I had no idea that the auto body shop was raided at any point. That was news to me. I didn't see any reason that the court needed to raid the body shop.
Yeah, they make it a really big deal that it's basically killing his dad.
Yes. He's moved to heart attacks.
Yeah. It's
hypertension.
More to make the Buttafuoco's the victims.
Yes.
Well, I guess Mary Jo Buttafuoco was absolutely a victim.
Yes.
But the other Buttafuocos as victims.
Speaking of Amy Jo being a victim, somebody who has surgery should not be taking a shower that soon.
No, we learned that after my surgeries.
It's like you have to go 2 weeks without a shower, no kind of like
that
impact
next
of running
day.
water. Yes. Yeah. And he's basically pulling into her shower saying she'll feel better. No. You're gonna bleed. Anyway.
It's another bullshit sensationalism. How much he cares, his wife, and they ugly her up a lot more. Like they make her wound look way worse in this one.
But after the fact, after she's able to talk and like have comments to the media, the injury they put her in this movie is not at all like the actual injury. The nerves of her face are way more damaged, and there's more of a snarl on her face that this actress in this first movie is able to talk through when that was not at all possible.
And what I think that was all about is they gave her the big horrible scar and stuff because it was a way of making Joey look even better. Like, look, his wife has even gotten ugly and he still supports her. Yeah. Like, it was just so transparent and fucked up. I'm trying to think of other things I liked. I kind of liked the score. It had a little too much bow chicka bow wow. Like it
was definitely from a house band that they featured in the film at some point.
Yeah.
It seemed like that band did the whole soundtrack.
There was a really good part where they have just an extended drum solo.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny because
and they talked about Joey being a drummer.
Yeah.
That's something I'd never heard of.
No,
or that he had a vasectomy. That was another thing I never heard of.
Yeah, that was weird and pointless. But I just was thinking of the movie Birdman, which I otherwise don't like. Did have a mostly drum solo score, which I thought was neat. I had to bow
out of that movie.
Yeah,
really. You know that.
Most of the score is drum solo, which I thought was cool. So this movie gets that. The thing is, the timeline of this movie is such a mess that they're skipping periods of time, like months, and then they sometimes tell us months later, but other times they don't.
Yes. And
they just cut a lot of necessary context. So I'm gonna move on to the other version, which was ABC's The Amy Fisher Story, which is sometimes called Beyond Control, The Amy Fisher Story.
Okay.
Now this was this is directed by Andy Tennant, and this sort of attempts to tell the story from an objective point of view.
Yes. But
in part that's because they didn't want to pay for the rights. So they can only work from public information. And there's a investigative journalist who it's from the point of view, and she's based on a real person who helped write the script, basically. Yes. And this one, former child star Drew Barrymore plays Fisher. This is way more polished. This looks like you could maybe release it in theaters and people wouldn't notice it was made for TV. Maybe. Like, it's on the verge. It sort of looks like one of the better episodes of 90210. Like, you definitely see the 90210 aesthetic taking things over here.
I don't know, when this Amy Fisher, played by Drew Barrymore, has flashbacks, that easily puts it back into TV movie territory for me.
Well, the funny thing is the first flashback that they do is this jittery black and white thing, and it's exactly the thing they do at the beginning of the movie The Fugitive.
Oh, yeah.
But The Fugitive was the next year, so it's like, wow, okay, they got one thing.
Where'd they learn that from?
Yeah, but they don't stick with it. And in fact, this is another one where the timeline is unnecessarily messed up because they have multiple framing devices. They're telling the story out of order, jumps back and forth in time. It's potentially more confusing than Long Island Lolita, but because it's better made, it makes a little more sense.
Yes.
But basically, they establish the framing device that we're telling the story from looking back with Amy and her mom looking back from the hospital after Amy's has a second time tried to commit suicide. But then they introduce another framing device where the journalist Amy Paganosi, who's played by Harley Jane Kozak, she becomes another flashback device. And then during that scene, they introduce a third flashback device, and that Amy is being interviewed earlier on from a different prison thing.
Yes.
By the police. So we have 3 framing devices in different places in time that are telling in this movie in flashbacks, and this is very weird to do. And then they also show the attempted murder twice. They show it from the point of view of the boy who gave Amy a ride.
Yes.
Which I thought worked better, honestly. And then they show the actual thing happen. And they also don't really show her. She just shoots her.
They say later in a court scene that I remember hitting her with the gun.
Yeah.
Shooting her and then stepping on her.
I don't remember that actually happening, but...
Right. She seemed... During her guilty plea, that's definitely something she brings up.
But this movie does a lot more to humanize Fisher. She's not let off the hook, but we have context. Her parents are actually characters in this one.
Yes.
And they have this sort of awkward thing where they sort of imply that her problems are all due to her fighting with her dad all the time, who is not physically abusive or child molester or anything, but he is unnecessarily mean for like no reason.
And the mom really is like over placating.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of scenes where I think we're supposed to feel sorry for him that don't work because he's just being mean for no reason. He's being an unsupportive dad. And then this movie has way more about the prostitution aspect.
Yes.
Which just comes out of nowhere in the other version, too. If you didn't know the story, you would think it was just something that Buttafuoco's made up.
There is an instance in the first movie of her having a beeper and what is she needed for.
Yeah.
And you're just led to believe that it's because she's a call girl.
But there's this whole thing about what she's doing in this. And they still don't want to get sued, so it's not stated that Joey was putting her up to this. You know, they leave that a little more open. We also introduced to her pre-Joey boyfriend and his family who seem to really like her. Yes. We meet her aunt. We get any context of her meeting Paul the bodybuilder. He's not just her boyfriend in the next scene.
It's someone that Joey introduces to her. Right.
And that she's sort of like, I'm going to get super attracted by hanging out with this bodybuilder, but I also, the only way I know how to interact with men and get what I want is to try to seduce them. We also learn, so in the other movie, Paul just releases this video of her saying incriminating things, and hard copy plays it, and it fucks up the whole case for her. In this version, we learned that he went to them saying, I can get a video. Yes. Set her up, and then it was edited to make her look worse. Yes. Which is something they don't even hint at in the other one. And so that kind of made me hate the other one more. I'm going to talk about Drew Barrymore for a little bit here. So Alyssa Milano in The Where and Now, I'll talk about some more. She had a rough life, and she had the child star problems, and she was a vanguard of Me Too. But Drew Barrymore is this sort of textbook case of child abuse on set, and this sort of, she comes from a line of tragic actors who are alcoholics and burnouts and self-destructive people. And so I don't want to go into it too much because, you know, she's written about it. There's been all sorts of information about it. It was a rough time. She was in a rough place. And around the same time, her and Milano decide to mature up their careers. But there's a problem here. Alyssa Milano was born in 1972. That means she was 20 years old when she made Long Island Lolita. Barrymore was born in 1975, which means she was actually 17 when she made this movie. Okay. And then add to this the fact that she had just broken up with her 25-year-old boyfriend, who she had been with since she was 16 the year before. She was very publicly sexualized. Like, she was sort of like the little girl from E.T. and Stephen King's Cat's Eye and Firestarter.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly she is only 16 and she is being sexualized and she is dating and engaged to a full-grown man in his mid-20s. And she had just been, in 1989, she was in a thriller called Far From Home, where she plays an age-appropriate teen who's traveling with her father. There is an attempted rape scene. I have not seen this movie, so I can't tell you how sensationalized that is, but the poster is Barrymore in a sexy pose with a bare midriff.
Huh.
The entire movie is sold on the sex appeal of a 14-year-old Drew Barrymore. So when this movie has particularly hot and heavy... Oh, actually, no. I still need to say one more thing.
Okay.
The reason she gets this Amy Fisher gig, I have this as an assumption, is because she had just made an R-rated feature called Poison Ivy. And in that was the teenage version of Fatal Attraction, baby. Some people give that one a pass because it was directed by a woman, Kat Shea, who was aware of the controversy and how to treat it. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That there was a sleeper hit, though. Critics hated it and specifically objected to Barrymore's casting. But it spawned a miniature straight-to-video series franchise. And then inspired another movie called The Crush with Alicia Silverstone, who was even younger. But guess who starred in the first Poison Ivy sequel? Alyssa Milano. Poison Ivy 2, straight-to-video movie, Alyssa Milano. So, anyway, it's very, very uncomfortable. And in the version we watched, which is the video version, they actually added nudity and implied oral sex. Mm-hmm. And it's a body double, but there's no reason to assume it's a body double if you don't know any better. Mm-hmm. And that really sucked, I thought. For a movie that was otherwise treating Amy Fisher as more of a person, I thought that really sucked. But I will say Barrymore does sort of disappear into the role, and I was very impressed. And it's funny because she has that specific Drew Barrymore. She has that slight lisp when she talks. Mm-hmm. It's always been her voice. She sticks and maintains a realistic, believable, non-goofy Long Island accent.
Yes.
And it almost changes who she is. It's kind of incredible, actually.
It really does.
That doesn't happen very often. The director, Andy Tennant, he began directing multiple failed Ferris Bueller TV shows.
Oh my gosh.
The actual Ferris Bueller TV series failed. And he directed that. Then he directed the Bueller-esque Park Lewis Can't Lose.
Yes, Park Lewis.
And then he directed The Wonder Years, which has a teen boy who's narrating his own story as an adult, but he's narrating his own story. So it's like that was his speciality, apparently. Mm-hmm. Just before this movie, he made a TV drama called Desperate Choices to Save My Child, featuring a very young Reese Witherspoon as a girl dying of leukemia. And this is one of three, the only one of the three Amy Fisher movies that's written by a woman, Janet Brunell, who has otherwise wrote a lot of TV romance and a lot of Christmas-themed TV romance.
Oh, Lord.
Buttafuoco is portrayed by Tony Dennison, not Tony Danza. He was in The Girl Who Came Between Them, which was a 1990 made-for-TV movie about a Vietnam vet who invites his Vietnamese maybe daughter to come live with him and his family, ruining his home life. So it's not there's no like him being inappropriate with the girl, but the idea that
his family's like, nope.
Yeah. Then he was the one I actually know that Child of Light, Child of Darkness was a 1991 sort of Omen ripoff that was made for TV.
What?
And The Price She Paid in 1992, which can be found on the Lifetime channel. Mm-hmm. And then he played John Gotti in the CBS film Getting Gotti. So there are references to Amy Fisher not being John Gotti, but getting more. Her bail was set higher than John Gotti's.
Correct.
So I thought that was kind of funny. And his version of Buttafuoco is a creep and a dumbass. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't have he's not like a predator, but he's just a creep.
I thought that he and Drew Barrymore's depiction of Amy Fisher, they flirted
Yeah.
They had repartee. I think I even referred to it as like, this is like Screwball.
Yeah.
Their overlapping dialogue is really fast.
Yeah, and that in part to sort of compact the story, I think.
Speeding it up.
In those scenes in particular, there's a difference I noticed that I thought was interesting. Let me move closer to the mic here. In Milano's version, Amy brags about losing her virginity at 12. But in the Barrymore version, she doesn't brag about it. It's just sort of a matter-of-fact thing that she wishes didn't happen.
Right.
And I think that the subtext in the movie is that she is testing Joey's moral, like, boundaries. But it's not a brag. It's a very different treatment of the story, I thought.
Yes.
Yeah, we see that they slept together. We see more of the relationship. I'll say in the plus column, there's a lot more about Amy's behavior that is explained by her being still a kid. That she's mature for her age, but she's still a kid. There's like the scene where they're in bed together and she is writing Mrs. Buttafuoco on his back with her finger, and then and he's like, don't do that, and she gets embarrassed. She's like, no, I wouldn't really, but it's like something a teenager would do.
Yeah, like writing your married name like in a notebook several times.
And so, I mean, and the journalist character pays lip service to this and how it's an important context, and that the tabloids are actually being like predatory about the story and trying to turn her into a Lolita, which on a completely different tangent, we really need to, as a society, implement like a standardized lesson plan to make people understand the book Lolita and the phrase Lolita, because I don't think anybody understands that book.
No, sure don't.
So yeah, the other movie sucks for being pro Buttafuoco, whereas this one has a bit of a cop-out thing going on where they're sort of trying to both sides the issue. Which is, I think, doesn't work for them. But one thing that I'm going to ask you that I don't know if you knew, I think I brought this up. There's a scene in this where Joey calls into a radio show.
Yes.
That really happened?
I don't know. That was in my what I might not have read about column.
Okay, because that makes him look so fucking stupid.
It really does. That he'd be a frequent listener, first-time caller. That's just trashy.
And getting into an argument on a radio station about it. If that really happened, it's like, Jesus, he's just an idiot. That he... Anyway. Yeah, so what are the things here that it got right, didn't get right?
Mary Jo has a more realistic and more pronounced facial injury. Amy's first lawyer was indeed a vibrating bed salesman. Both movies agree on her sharing pizza with Joey, Amy getting an STD, the rifleman in the bushes, and Mary Jo painting deck chairs before she answers the door. What might have been dramatized, what I might have read about, etc. It depicts him actually going with her to the hotel, having sex in her bedroom, on the phone, and on a boat. And Amy's mom's story about Amy wanting to escape her wound so badly that she kicked her and causes wounds on the outside. I'm not aware of her saying anything like that.
But it is nice that Amy's mother is actually a character in this one.
Placating though she is.
She has no scenes in the other one. She's in one scene. There's completely different context for the scene where Amy gets herpes. In one movie, it comes out of nowhere, and she just admits that she's lying. And then the other movie, there's this whole...
She brings Joey in the house.
She's like, Joey, I need to say you gave me herpes so that they don't, you know... She's using it as a way to try to introduce the idea that she's sleeping with him to her parents. And that doesn't work, so then she says, she fesses up that she didn't get it from him.
Right.
Because that would actually be worse to fess up to being a teenage prostitute. Where are they now, Kristine?
Amy Fisher was released from prison in May 1999 at age 24, serving only 7 years instead of 15 due to unfair representation by the lawyer of her 1992 trial. Mary Jo had received a letter from Amy and led her to plead for mercy towards a shortened sentence. Also, at that time, Amy had filed a lawsuit stating that she was raped by prison guards, and her lawyer forced her towards the guilty plea, though she was also having sex with him at the time. After her release, Amy moved to Florida, got married to a former NYPD cop, had 3 children, divorced, then moved back to New York. Joey and Mary Jo moved to the West Coast, divorced in 2003. Then Joey married a second time in 2005. Sex tapes, cam shows, TV appearances, and reunions would be prominent events in Amy and Joey's future, but Mary Jo would publish a memoir in 2009 called Getting It Through My Thick Skull: Why I Stayed, What I Learned, and What Millions of People Involved with Sociopaths Need to Know. And she advocates for people with facial paralysis, though she underwent significant facial repair surgery in 2017. Amy quoted to Fox News in 2008 that the fact that Mary Jo has a bullet in her head means nothing. I still have silicone in my boobs. You don't hear me complaining. She can't feel her bullet, and I can't feel my silicone. Mary Jo responded years later saying, I don't have a lot of thoughts about her other than kind of a waste. She's just kind of a waste.
Where are they now for, I'll talk a little bit more about the two actresses. Milano, soon after this, was in the 1995 straight-to-video erotic vampire movie Embrace the Vampire. Mm-hmm. This was heavily advertised on pay-per-view. So, like, back in the day, I don't think this is they might still be a thing, where on cable TV you have a station that is only devoted to telling you what's on the TV.
Yes.
Now you have pop-up.
Do you remember what happened in Montreal, Gabe?
Yeah. Yeah.
What we thought was a family channel?
Yeah, the hotel we stayed at in Montreal had two hardcore pornography channels.
Just kind of in the regular section of going through the
There
TV.
was no way to cut them off. They were just there if you were flipping channels.
And you would have never known, looking at the guide portion of this.
It didn't tell you.
Anyway, go ahead.
But so you would have these things, and usually the top of the screen, it would be an advertisement for what was on pay-per-view. Mm-hmm. So I remember very distinctly looking at the channel thing because we didn't get TV Guide, mm-hmm. and them having ad after ad after ad for Alyssa Milano in Embrace the Vampire, the unrated cut. But then after that, Milano joined Melrose Place. She was in Showtime movie Confessions of a Sorority Girl, and was a long-running part of Charmed. She was a outspoken Me Too person.
When did she do Double Dragon?
She did Double Dragon a little bit after this. She was the romantic lead in Double Dragon, which has a scene that is very devoted to her butt. I covered that with
you covered
Justin.
Her butt?
No, the Double Dragon with Justin. If you want to listen to that episode about video game adaptations. Mm-hmm. After the Amy Fisher story and a little bit more TV, the director ended up specializing in romantic comedies, including the Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen version of The Parent Trap called It Takes Two.
Right, yes.
He made Fools Rush In, starring Friends star Matthew Perry.
Mm-hmm. Salma Hayek.
Yeah, he made Sweet Home Alabama, which reunited him with Witherspoon.
Witherspoon, yeah.
He made Hitch. He made Fool's Gold, and he made the universally despised The Bounty Hunter, starring Friends star Jennifer Aniston. He reconnected with Barrymore in 1998 for Ever After, A Cinderella Story. Mm-hmm. Barrymore pulled her life together. She lived happily ever after. Kristine, is there anything you can think of that they need to? That they are you? What are you doing?
You can find me on Etsy.com at Usagi Kumihimo.
You can find me, as usual, on the Genre Grinder website, on the Genre Grinder Facebook page. You can find me as Gabe Powers on Blue Sky. You can find me as Gabe Powers on Letterboxd. I put up a new shirt recently, and it sold very well.
It's a beautiful shirt.
So I'm actually going to have money to donate whenever they send it to me. As of this recording is July 12th. It has not been sent to me yet, but I'm keeping an eye on it, and I will post on Blue Sky when I get the money and when I donate it, so that people know that I'm actually doing that. And thank you to my Patreon subscribers. And until next time, I didn't write one this time. Until next time,
keep your woman happy.
Or don't trust the first version of a story that you ever see.
Get it from all the sides.
Yeah, see all three versions. of the dramatization before you make up your mind. All right, goodbye.
Bye.